Let's now talk about what has really shaken up the Trump administration, although no one is really admitting it right now. We have Professor Swasti Rao, geopolitical expert, with us. She's with the Jindu School of International Affairs. Good evening to you, Professor Rao. It seems normally Donald Trump is quite talkative, but he's not talked about it yet. Just the administration, some nameless people in his administration right now saying that this decision will be appealed, just tells you a lot about what sort of surprise has the administration been hit by. They thought that they had made very solid arguments, even citing stopping the prospect of a war in our own part of the world, but it didn't really wash well with the court.
Well, good evening, Gautam. And well, I mean, in many, many words, what I can just say, that Donald Trump's administration is becoming a victim of its own strategic cacophony. If you've been noticing, ever since he has come to the White House, ever since he has come back as president, he has been making a mockery of almost everything, of his rivals, of his allies, of trade policies, of mediation efforts, of wars and peace and everything. And right now, what you see is also, somewhere shows that he actually, his administration has not really read the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is called the EPA, or many call it IPA, which is a 1977 law. They have not read it properly. If you were to go to the US congressional website and click on it, it actually shows that this particular law cannot be justified the way Donald Trump has manipulated is to levy tariffs, and especially the Liberation Day tariffs, that he kind of imposed across partners on the 2nd of April. And he does not have the power to impose those kind of sweeping import taxes. So I think he knew what he was getting into, but Donald Trump being Donald Trump, I think the immediate audience of such knee-jerk measures that he takes are basically his MAGA fan base, where he's actually won the election campaign on the basis of reducing tariffs, and for him, reduction of tariffs is basically the solution to all economic problems. So I guess this was supposed to come sooner than later. In fact, this has been one of the two cases which have marked the first major legal challenges to his Liberation Day tariffs. And frankly, very, very practically, you can see that the markets are loving it, because you can see that there is a correction. The stocks exchanges are doing well. The markets are, happy about it. If you look at the partners, though they do not expect Donald Trump to completely change his stance, but everybody has welcomed it. That itself goes on to show that Donald Trump's policy, when it comes to imposing tariffs across the board, is not really working. That's one part. And just about China, as we were busy in mediation, and the so-called mediation coming from Donald Trump administration, which was basically a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan in our part of the world, Donald Trump had coolly gone ahead and struck a deal with China in Geneva and actually dropped all the 2nd April tariffs anyway. So, I mean, it's a bit of everything. And Donald Trump is just having a taste of his own medicine, because the way he's going about, obviously, this means more confusion than any other order. And another fallout can be seen in terms of how Elon Musk has now parted ways. So, a lot of it is self-explanatory. Back to you, Gautam.
Yes, certainly. And still, there are a lot of people who think that this will not be a case of TACO. TACO is now becoming a very well talked about abbreviation in a very different sort of a context. But because they feel that the Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court, where this matter might eventually end up, is already stacked with a majority of conservative judges that Trump himself appointed the first time around that he was president. Now, is that a safe presumption to make, that eventually Donald Trump in this case will get his way, or is that too much of a presumption?
No, but what I want to really mention here is that Donald Trump administration himself has not been able to walk the talk. It's just that, these are challenged in courts, which are special trade courts, and one sees that these are quite unlawful. But Donald Trump administration is acting like a bully administration. I mean, they are not able to walk the talk anyway, and that is the reason why I gave you the example of what he went ahead and did with China in Geneva. Clutching a trade deal where he actually dropped all of the tariffs that were imposed on the 2nd of April. So what I'm trying to say is that Donald Trump administration doesn't seem to have a stable, sustainable strategy on anything. So he is somebody who's jumping from one big news to the other big news, and I'm not very sure if the administration has the attention span to really follow through. Okay, so whether or not, whenever this goes to the Supreme Court, and as you rightly mentioned out, that there are so many conservative judges out there, but I'm not even sure if the markets would allow this, until then, because like I said, that you already see that everybody is welcoming the fact that Donald Trump's cacophony, and whether it's strategic or economic, I mean, is being, whenever it's called out, is being actually welcomed by the industry people. The markets are doing well. So that itself is something that, bears evidence. But for example, I mean, I did see the statements made by the Deputy Press Secretary, Kush Desai, and he said that it is not for the unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. Of course, he doesn't really know how to define a national emergency at all, and that's why I'm saying that they have not really read what really this IPA law all about. But that said, it is very much possible that finally when it goes there and Donald Trump is able to get the decision in his favor, and he would eventually then again hold it up as a victory of Make America Great Again. So it is very much possible, because Trumpian theatrics, being Trumpian theatrics, I think I would not discount the scope of any of such things. But what I'm trying to say is that I do not foresee that he has the sheer consistency to actually follow up on these things, because a lot of things he says and then he takes a completely different decision.
Well, let's see, he thinks that he's a great negotiator, and that I did not really elaborate on TACO, but it stands for Trump always chickens out, or as I would say, cops out. But let me just get our viewers something that has also happened after what's happened in this federal trade court. And bear with me for a moment, Swasi, I'll come back to you. Well, Wall Street's main indices opened higher on Thursday after a federal court ruled against most of US President Donald Trump's tariffs, and AI bellwether NVIDIA reported a 69% surge in quarterly sales, lifting sentiment. The Dow Jones Industrial Average opened a new tab and rose 91.3 points, or 0.22% at the open, to 42,190.02. The S&P 500 rose 51.4 points, or 0.87% at open, to 5939.96, while the Nasdaq Composite rose 288.5 points, or 1.51% to 19,389.392 at the opening bell. And also, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that India is working with full sincerity and is aiming for a fair, equitable and balanced trade relationship and agreements with countries that align with India's interests. Minister Goyal was speaking at a CII event in New Delhi, and the reference was to both the US as well as the European Union.
We are working with full sincerity. We are looking at fair, equitable and balanced trading relationships and agreements with countries of our interest, with complementary economies, with economies where we have good things to offer and they have good things to support our growth story with. So therefore, it's a great time for India. This period is going to define our growth story, and this period is going to be remembered years into the future, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation of Viksit Bharat.
Swastika, your reaction to what Piyush Goyal just said and how the markets are reacting, considering that Piyush Goyal always maintained that India never negotiates with a gun to its head, and now that gun has pretty well been hosteled by this federal trade court, unwittingly and involuntarily, where Donald Trump is concerned.
I mean, well, from India's perspective, like I said, that today, United States is certainly are one of the most important strategic partners. In fact, I have always maintained that in current times, United States is the most important strategic partner. And of course, when Donald Trump had just become president, the expectations were different. People were expecting him to take a much more visibly pro-India stand. But Donald Trump being Donald Trump, he's literally turned everything around. As far as the trade deal is concerned, very quickly, yes, I do expect that India and the US will sign a trade deal very soon. India has gone out of its way to make sure that not only are the tariffs lowered and removed in some cases, but also we go out of our way to also purchase more, items from the US in order to reduce the trade deficit. On the one hand, on the other hand, this has also made a lot of room, and I would say a lot of geopolitical push for India to also finalize its long pending FTA with the EU. And if sources are to be believed, I see a early conclusion of an early harvest, trade deal out there. So I think in that respect, India is on the right stand, because in order to become more embedded into the global production and manufacturing chains and not just supply chains, I guess India needs to really sort of join the developed West. But all of this is not going to really take away the worry that we have here in terms of Donald Trump's unpredictability, because his interest is clearly focused on the MAGA fan base. I'm not sure if those guys really understand what trade policies are all about, etc. And just one more thing, Gautam, because we were mentioning it, and the last time I didn't get a chance to elaborate upon. So this is the particular emergency act that he has invoked is not the only one. There is a possibility that if he were to sort of lose on that ground, that that particular law is illegal and it's unlawful for the American president to actually impose such sweeping tariffs.
Yes, the implementation of the law is illegal.
Yeah, there are also other provisions available in the US law that he can do. So what I'm saying is that it actually just depends on how far he wants to push it and how far he wants to treat it as a centerpiece of his domestic and foreign
policy. Or if he wants to defy even the Supreme Court if it comes to it, and then creates a constitutional crisis. But I guess we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. I'm going to have to wrap it up. Swasti Rao, thank you so much for joining us this evening.